Live from Chicago, it's Chris Sells His Soul. I'm your host, Chris Bogue, and this is my show on LinkedIn Live, where I have conversations with cool people who will help you work more creatively. Today, my guest is James Perry. James, please introduce yourself and let my audience know where they can find you online.
Hey everyone. First off, thanks for having me, Chris. James Perry. I'm just a brand ambassador for several tech companies and love going on adventures. And I'm rather passionate about this platform, LinkedIn. I've met some of my best friends off this platform, and it's just being active on the platform has really it's changed my life. So yeah, thanks again for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. This episode is called Adventures in LinkedIn. James and I both have a lot of adventures on LinkedIn. It's how we make a living. So I figured I would introduce myself. So if anybody in the audience does not know me, my name is Chris Bogue. I am a writer and a coach and a comedian. I'm also an entrepreneur. I teach people to make mercifully short video content for business. So sometimes that means prospecting videos for sales. Sometimes that means video content on platforms like LinkedIn or TikTok or YouTube. But I exist to get people going out there, telling their story on their terms and playing to the top of their intelligence on video. So we are going to jump into the episode in just a moment. But first, I want to throw it over to the comments. So if you are watching this episode live on one of our channels on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or wherever, go ahead and leave a comment. We do not know if you're here unless you leave a comment. So jump in here. Let me know if you've been on an adventure recently. Let me know if you are having adventurous content on LinkedIn. I see Sarah Hanks there. I see James Kunkel. Welcome to the party. Jump in. Let us know where you're watching from today. And if you have any questions for me and James about adventures, about LinkedIn, about working with brands, just throw them in the comments section, and we're going to try to answer as many questions as we can before the end of the episode. So with that said, let's get it started. So James, I had you on the show because you and I met when I first started creating content.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 2 years ago. I had quit my job with a 1-sentence email. I was done with tech sales. It was the craziest thing I've ever done. And I decided I'm just going for this video thing. I see a lane for myself. I'm going to go 100% in, and I'm going to put myself out there and just see who responds to it. And James, you were one of the first people who was really there for me. You were an early person who was like, I enjoy this. This is funny. Keep going. Keep it up. You had a sales job at the time. Now you don't. Now you work on your own, and you work with brands, and you're always doing crazy stuff, like jumping off cliffs and kickboxing and stuff like that. So why don't you start and just tell the audience a little bit about what it was like to decide to go on your own and just start doing things on LinkedIn instead of having a sales job.
Yeah, I think every company that I've worked at, I've always been kind of known as the one who is passionate about the platform. And I think one of my favorite parts about LinkedIn is when folks like yourself come through my feed when they're like just getting going, because I know for myself when I started posting on the platform, it can be quite intimidating, right? I think the latest metric is there's 900 million users or something, and like 1% of people post. So it can be intimidating, but I view that as an opportunity because the organic reach can be pretty darn massive, right? There's not a lot of not a lot of creators on the platform. There's a lot of consumers. So yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I saw your stuff coming through my feed, and I was like, it's different, and it made me laugh. Like there was no one really that was putting out. There was very few people at the time that were putting out video content that was like stopping me in my tracks and making me laugh. So I just wanted to support you because I know early on like how it felt for me when people were, supporting me. And that's what the platform's all about. I say it's a lot like a potluck, for example, right? Like if you bring good food to the potluck and you have good conversation, you're going to get invited back to the potluck. I mean, to me, that's as simple as it is. The platform doesn't have to be any more complicated than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like LinkedIn. It's this weird thing where I will satirize LinkedIn as part of my bit because I was taught to satirize things. I learned sketch comedy at Chicago's Second City, and they teach you to satirize the world and satirize pop culture and politics and sports and everything. So I do satirize LinkedIn, but it comes from a place of love. And LinkedIn has this reputation for being cringy, for being fake, for being insincere, for being exhausting. And it can be all of those things. But I have found that the people who are that 1% that you talked about who are there posting,
Mm-hmm.
they are really engaged. They're giving you their attention. And it is the only platform that I have found where there's no kids. You do not have to compete against teenagers on LinkedIn the way you do on TikTok. And what that means is your audience is adults.
Mm-hmm.
They're adults. They tend to be well educated. They tend to have higher incomes. And you can find people who want to do things. So let's get into a little bit of the work that you are doing with brands. So you mentioned you work with a lot of brands. You are a brand ambassador. I see brand ambassadors happening all the time on LinkedIn, and I'm like, what the hell does that mean? So I'm so glad you're here. Can you tell my audience a little bit about what it is to be a brand ambassador? What kind of work are you doing with these companies?
Yeah, so it really depends on which company we're talking about. Every contract is different. My first one, I started off at a company called Magic Mind. So that's essentially a healthy alternative to Red Bull. So I was doing some outbound prospecting, doing our best to get the product into shelves of tech companies, right? And then the pandemic kicked in, and obviously that got interesting. So as a company, we've transitioned over to, instead of so much like B2B, it's been B2C. So I help out with West Coast distribution of the product into coffee shops and like, cafes and stuff, spreading the word of the product. And then a few of the tech companies, I'm essentially an outsourced SDR. So I help account executives book meetings, and then I get in on monthly recurring revenue depending on the contract, depending on how the model's set up.
Yeah, it's very interesting because people see what we're doing out here and it looks like it's nothing but fun and games, but it helps if you have a little bit of salesmanship to you. And the whole reason why I started doing everything you see me doing out here, and Lynn, you're very kind. Lynn comments, Chris is funny. That's like the greatest compliment anyone can give me. It really is sweet of you to say that. But the whole reason why I started doing this was because I wanted to train people to sell on video. And it's nice to have something to talk about on LinkedIn other than like shaking people down for meetings. I find it is much easier to sell to people if you also have like things you're doing that are entertaining that also just happen to be part of your professional brand. So, can you tell me a little bit about your adventures in terms of like, I see you hang gliding and like kickboxing and taking ice baths and stuff like that. How long have you been doing stuff like that on LinkedIn?
So that's a good question, and I was just thinking about that yesterday. The ice baths came from meeting Tim Pereira on LinkedIn. He started posting about them, and it piqued my curiosity. And he's like, "Hey, I'm having an ice bath event at La Jolla Shores. Would you like to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll come check it out." I mean, I try to do new things whenever I can, and the opportunity was afforded to me. And I showed up there on a cold morning. I think it was in, want to say it was in either November or December at like 7 a.m. The sun had like just come over the hill, and it was cold, that morning. And we like load up the ice and we hop in there, and I'm like, yeah, this is this is cold. I mean, the first 30 seconds it's not fun, it's frigid, but he's like, just, do your best to last between, 3 to 5 minutes. And once you settle in with the breathing, 5 in, hold it, 5 out, you get in like a flow like state. And I was like, damn, I started getting into it. And then I loved the way that I felt afterwards. Like I loved the euphoria. And then he introduced me to another friend who's a breathwork coach, and I learned about like Wim Hof breathing. So for me, the platform is just about, I find that people that are active on the platform tend to have a growth mindset. So if I hang out with these people, I'm constantly learning and just getting myself involved in new things. No different from being on this show. I mean, you're active on the platform, I'm active on the platform, and I'd love to learn more how to sell from video, because that's one of my prospecting methods when I'm reaching out to companies as a brand ambassador.
Yeah. I think this is an adventure. What we're doing right now is an adventure. And to anybody who is at home who wants to start creating content, you listen to what James had just said about that ice bath, right? He didn't even know what it was. He was just open to the experience. And one thing I don't think people at home realize is that you don't need to be an expert to create content. And you also don't need to pretend to be an expert to get someone to listen to you. Oftentimes, I go out here and I'm creating a situation where I don't know what's going to happen, and there is a part of content where it's like people just want to see other people experience things. And one thing that LinkedIn is different about compared to websites like Facebook and Twitter, at least I feel, Facebook and Twitter were designed for you to share someone else's ideas. They were really designed for people to take news articles or videos or whatever and say, hey, here's this thing that somebody else made. I'm showing you that because it's worthwhile, And I feel like where things are going, especially on LinkedIn and especially on TikTok, is the social media platforms are really pushing you to become part of the action. They want the audience to become the creator. And LinkedIn makes it hard to link to stuff outside of LinkedIn. They really want you to share your own perspective, your own knowledge, and if you're someone like, let's say you're a first-time sales rep, you don't have to go out there pretend like you're this President's Club member who's hit 1 million quotas. If you go on LinkedIn and you're like, hey, I'm working on my first quota. Like, this is my first week of cold calling. Let me know how it goes and weigh in with any advice you would give to me that you wish you had when you started cold calling. You're going to get a ton of support, and it's just because you came out there honestly, and there's something non-pretentious about that, and it's also not expected. Everybody expects everyone on LinkedIn to go out there and flaunt their wealth, flaunt their status, but if you go out there as a real person who's just in the middle of a situation where you don't know how it's going to end, that's actually insanely compelling.
I would definitely agree with you. And referencing kind of the fake it till you make it shenanigans, I've done that in the past in the sales world, and it got me on boats that we'll just say were above my pay grade, were a lot bigger in terms of getting like racing positions. And if you go out with a qualified sale, like a professional sailor, they're going to start asking you to grab things and do things, and they'll know within the first like minute or two, like, yeah, this guy doesn't know, like he doesn't know what he's like talking about. So I learned that at a young age, like just before the boat leaves, like ask the questions or have a meeting beforehand and say, and just be transparent and be like, hey, I don't know this or this or this. And they're 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, they appreciate it, because like it's just you're just being real. So to your point, like, yeah, you don't have to like hide behind the computer and tell yourself like, oh, I'm not a President's Club winner. If you just started as an SDR, I think that's a great approach to have, and that's something that I wish I did years ago when I first started as an SDR. Because the crazy thing about a platform like LinkedIn is what you'll find is someone who you don't even know and is coming through your feed can often be much more helpful than the person who sits like 8 seats down. And I can't explain why that is. That I don't know. That's something that I wonder about. It's not always the case, but I found that if I'm seeking an answer to a question, there will be strangers. If you pose the question, there will be strangers that will come through. And oftentimes, like a relationship can be formed.
Oh, okay. Well, we've lost James for the moment. So I'm going to wait for him to come back in. Maybe his computer lost power or something. Um, Alexa says kids ruin everything. Yeah, you said it, not me, Alexa. But okay, James is back. James is back. Welcome, James.
Thank you.
Sorry. So I'm sorry. I was doing crowd work for a minute. I forgot where we left off in the story.
Yeah, I was just saying that what I found is there's people from all levels of the like with tech sales, for example, right? If you were to say I'm an SDR, um, I just started, and you might have like a VP of sales, an RVP of sales, a chief revenue officer, or something. They might send you a direct message and say, hey, like if you got time to chat on Saturday, give me a call. I mean, I've had that with numerous very high level people that I thought I kind of assumed were unapproachable, but they're definitely not. And that's the whole thing. Like if you put yourself out there on a platform where 99.9% of people won't put themselves out there, it's the the world could be your oyster. Literally, you could be talking with people in London. You could be getting sales tips from people in Sydney. It's a global platform. It's not just, oh, I live in Chicago and I need to go to coffee with this person at ABC company. It's like you can literally open yourself up to the globe, and it doesn't cost anything either. So yeah, I mean, I could go on a tangent, but I think those are some of the reasons why someone should take action.
Yeah, I want to jump on your point about why is it that total strangers are more likely to help you than the person who sits at the office with you. Um, to me, the people who see you all the time are most aware of your flaws. I tell people if you are starting a business or if you are starting out as a content creator, you have to talk to strangers all the time. You just have to. And your friends and family, the people who love you, they are often the ones who will doubt you the most because they have seen you fail. They have seen you procrastinate. They have seen you try big things and fall short. And the people who know your limitations are going to try to protect you, and it's going to get in your head. It's going to make you feel like you're not good enough because the people who are around you see you the way they see you. Whereas someone on the internet, all they see is possibility. You know,
Damn.
um, that VP who's looking at that first time cold caller, they don't know all the mistakes that cold caller has made in their life. They're just saying, hey, this is a person embarking on something that they can succeed at. I'm
Hmm.
going to try to help this person succeed because you totally can succeed as a person like this. And like, yeah, that's how I feel about that. Jen Allen is in the comments. She says, "Hey, Jen Allen is something of a
Hey, John.
LinkedIn legend, friend of the show, Jen Allen. I just polled my audience for their favorite episode. Her name came up a lot. Big content creator, big keynote speaker, works at a super cool company. She is a person who's willing to just talk to people and give feedback. And actually, this is something at home. And James, you can tell me if your experience has been different. I sent my content out to a lot of people when I first started. And when I sent them to big content creators, they were always nice to me. They were always helpful. They were always giving me feedback. The only people who ever got angry at me for sending them a piece of content, and that happened rarely, but it happened a couple times, it was the people who weren't doing anything. The people who did not have a following, the people who were not putting themselves out there, they were the ones who would be snarky, or they would be the ones who were like, oh, am I in a sequence? What is this? Like, no, don't send me crap like this.
Yes.
The ones who weren't doing anything were the ones who were judgmental. And the people who were out there doing really cool, impressive stuff tended to be the people who would take a minute and watch it and be like, hey, that was pretty cool. Here's a piece of feedback.
Mhm.
What has your experience been like with that?
Yeah, I've to your point, I found that to be the case. 99% of the time. And I think on the platform, if you do your best to assume positive intent, meaning this is digital communication, and let's face it, the messaging feature on LinkedIn can be pretty darn glitchy. So I've had people that like I've met up with in person, and it came through as a message and I didn't even see it because there was a point where I had a couple posts that went on tears. This was a few months back before the most recent algorithm change, but I didn't see the messages that, like, literally. So they would bump it to the top and I'd be like, I kind of feel like an ass because this person has sent me like 3 messages and I'm just seeing it now. But I like I said, I try and assume positive intent, and someone who has a massive following, like a big name on there, I'm sure let's take a Justin Welsh, for example, right? I mean, he's probably getting messages left and right, and it would be hard to control a LinkedIn message inbox. So like I said, I think if you just assume positive intent, I think what you'll find is an overwhelming majority of the people that are out there posting have a growth mindset, and part of a growth mindset is helping people that are a few steps behind.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that is a wonderful transition to our next segment, which is Gimme Gimme. So I'm going to throw the tip jar up here if anybody wants. I do have a tip jar now. You can donate what you want. But James, are you ready for Gimme Gimme?
Yes, I'm ready for Gimme Gimme.
All right. So this is a segment that we like to do. I like to do it because I like to clear up some misconceptions about LinkedIn. People say don't sell on LinkedIn. People say don't pitch on LinkedIn. People say LinkedIn is only for friendship. But actually, LinkedIn is the only platform that was invented for self-promotion. That's right. LinkedIn is designed to be a place where we can talk about our business, where we can search for jobs, we can search for new opportunities. And I like to take this moment to pop into character along with my guest so I can ask my audience for exactly what we want from them. So, James, you ready for Gimme Gimme?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Hello, Boss Bogue here for another episode of Gimme Gimme, the part of the show where I ask you for money. James Perry, my audience is here. They have money. They have LinkedIn accounts. What are you asking them for?
Just give me a follow. I try and post upbeat, motivational content, and I'm here definitely to support newer creators. So yeah, just give me a follow, and we can kind of take it from there.
Yeah. You don't know what a favor you're doing yourself by following James Perry, okay? Go connect with him. He's the most supportive man on LinkedIn. I have no idea how he finds the way to support every single amazing creator on LinkedIn, but he knows all of them. All right? You want to get started creating amazing content. You want a great friend and a great person who's out there doing it at a high level, who's going to give you support. Go follow James Perry on LinkedIn. And by the way, while you're at it, you should follow Chris Bogue too. Yeah, I've got the bell. I'm a content creator. I put it all out there. But really, if you really want the Chris Bogue experience, you should hire me. That's right. I do training. I do individual coaching. I do a one-time 90-minute session where we come up with a content roadmap for you. And I also do one-on-one individual coaching on monthly plans too. So if you want to get out there, you want to develop ideas, you want to make comedy, you want to make thoughtful stuff that's going to be great for your brand, hire Chris Bogue to come in there. I will train you. I do corporate training. I do individual coaching. It is the most fun you will have. And folks, everybody overthinks it. I know. I've done this a million times. I've been doing this for years. You have so many amazing ideas. You need somebody to help you get started right. And don't expect B2B do it because their content is garbage. All right, folks, they are not doing it as entertainingly as you are seeing it here today. You can be ahead of the game, but you're going to have to pay for the top level content. James, do you have anything else for my audience?
Follow the podcast that I'm a part of, Sales Stories in Real Life, as well. We basically flip the script, and instead of it's basically sellers talking about times that they've been buyers, and we've had some pretty interesting guests on the show, including yourself.
Yeah, that's right. It's an amazing show. Alex Brushy, he's in the crowd today. He hosts the show, Sales Stories IRL in Real Life. Check it out, and check out my course too. Video prospecting is not easy, especially if you're taking LinkedIn advice, which is bad. So This has been Gimme Gimme, and Iggy, go ahead and roll the tape. Hey there, it's me, Dr. Funkenstein. There's a lot of yahoos on LinkedIn giving sales advice, so it's time to talk about the facts about video prospecting. My team pays for a Vidyard Pro license, but I only make 1 or 2 videos a month. Is that good? Great question. The answer is no. That's actually pretty fucking bad if you think about it. In the scientific industry, which again, I am not from, we call that pissing money down the drain. I recommend implementing a simple process to create video regularly and sticking to it. That sounds awfully hard. I think we'll just mess around with it for a few months and hope everything works out. Is that a good plan? You're asking all the right questions. The answer is no. Sticking around with no process is not an effective strategy for video prospecting. But my buyers already receive videos all the time. No one's gonna wanna watch old me on video, right? This is a common misconception. A study conducted by Chris Bogue Communications reveals that most sales teams are sending out 0 videos a month, which means even the most incompetent sales reps can get noticed with just the slightest bit of effort. Wow, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this video thing. No, you actually don't understand it yet. That requires time and learning, and I recommend purchasing Chris Bogue's Complete Guide to Selling on Video, the ultimate guide to incorporating short, strategic video into all stages of your sales pipeline. I feel like a big doofus whenever I have to write on a whiteboard, but I'll do it if you think that's the right thing, Dr. Funkenstein. No worries. Our research shows that the whiteboard thing is cringe and has been since at least 2021. The Complete Guide to Selling on Video will train you to speak in a more natural, conversational style to engage with your prospects. Plus, tips for LinkedIn audience growth. Wow, Chris Bogue's Complete Guide to Selling on Video must cost a fortune. Wrong again, my friend. The Complete Guide to Selling on Video retails for just $250 American dollars. One problem, Dr. Funkenstein. I'm cheap and broke, so that still feels like a lot of money to me. You're in luck, because for a limited time only, the Complete Guide to Selling on Video is available for just $99 when you use the promo code SALES at chrisbogue.io. Get it today. It's the funnest, most useful guide to sales you'll ever buy. Or my name's not Dr. Funkenstein.
Dr. Funkenstein is not a doctor, nor does he claim to be a doctor. Statements made by Dr. Funkenstein are of his own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Chris Bogue or Chris Bogue Communications LLC. Talk to your head of sales enablement to learn if video prospecting is right for you. Side effects include confidence on camera, increased pipeline velocity, and mild bouts of laughter. If you took offense to the whiteboard joke, please contact Dr. Funkenstein directly to learn about joining our...
All right, there we go. There's the QR code. If anyone wants to scan it, Complete Guide to Selling on Video. It's my baby. I'd spent a lot of effort making it. Goes really in depth. Anyway, we're back to the actual show now. So now we want to get into a little bit about how my audience can get started here. So, I want to start. So I forgot to mention in the first half. So James actually got written about by the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal did a story about how to grow on LinkedIn, how to get monetized on LinkedIn. Can you just fill the audience a little bit on why were they interested in you and what did they interview you about?
Yeah, so let's see. I was back in, I want to say it was back in like mid-November. There was the first rounds of layoffs with, I want to say it was, I think Twitter and Facebook had a pretty big round of layoffs. And at the time I was like, well, what if I create a post to try and like build a job board out? So I just came up with just a post that said like, if you're hiring, please leave a comment. And if you're seeking employment, please leave a comment. It was something along those lines. There was a little more to it. Anyhow, the post like went on a tear. I mean, it got like 500,000 impressions pretty quickly, almost 2,000 reacts. And I went through the comments and I was like, wow, there's like actual like recruiters like talking with candidates, changing email and stuff. And I was like, and then I think like 2 weeks later, I got my first message from someone saying, hey, I got an interview from your post. Thank you very much. And I was like, no worries. Like it was cool. It took me like a minute to create the post. It was a light lift, you know? And like, I would do that once or twice a week for, you know, several weeks back to back. And I kept getting more messages from people saying I got an interview. And then one gal wrote to me and said, I got a job from your post. And I was like, well, like that to me felt pretty cool, because it was just like, what's the point in like saying you're building a community if you're not like giving back? And I was like, if I can take, just like that, a minute or two to create a post that could help get someone a job, I was like, to me that was really like, it was really gratifying, and I screenshotted her message, and I kept it on my desktop as like a reminder, like just keep going. And from like, this platform can be a lot bigger than it can be, as it can be big as what you want to make of it. And kind of my overall goal is to be able to land in any city in the world and say that, I'll be at, XYZ coffee shop. If anyone wants to swing by from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., let's grab coffee. I do that when I'm on the road, and sometimes a few people show up, and it's cool because it's like I said, people that are active on the platform have a growth mindset, and I want to learn from people that have a growth mindset. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting platform because we're all here for a reason, maybe you're in sales and you're trying to close more deals. Maybe you're a job seeker and you're trying to find a job. But it's like you're one conversation away from talking with anybody. And, I've done a lot of stuff. Now, I don't have the same method as you in terms of like posting like, hey, job seekers and recruiters, leave a comment here. But I have done, I make video content about how to get a job, and I found researching the companies, connecting with the people who have the job that you want, getting curious with them, talking to them, and then applying and incorporating video into that. That is a technique that has helped me and that has helped a lot of other people that I know. And yeah, it's that same thing too, where it's like, I've just been deep on this video stuff for a few years now. So if I go put something out there that's just designed to be helpful, I'll get people who are like, whoa, this like literally changed my life. Like, thank you, and I just see so much cynicism in the world. There's so much fear. There's so much of people holding themselves back. There's so much judgment. There's so much hatred. There's so much like acrimony in the world. When James and I say go on an adventure, that just means do something with somebody else. You don't have to do an ice bath. You don't have to create 20 original sketch comedy characters. But yeah, helping somebody get that job, establishing that human connection, even just encouraging somebody, like I swear we've got all these creators in here. We've got, Lauren Sermon here. We've got Katie Penner, Alex Brushy. We've got, we've got all these people out here. They put all this cool stuff out into the internet every day. You could just send them a message being like, yo, I love your content. Keep going. That kind of. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. I was saying, James has a dog named Conroy, and you two sail around the ocean. And can you just fill me in on like, how do you get from posting things about your life and the adventures that you're having to the point where you're actually reaching out to people and having coffee and meeting them in real life? How do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, that's funny. So Conroy is my sailing mentor's dog. Yeah, so people always, I mean, I pal around with him just about, every chance I get. So yeah, just wanted to clear that up because people are always asking. But how how you bridge the gap is by asking. I mean, Alex Bruschke's here in the comments, and he reached out. This was years ago, so it was prior to the pandemic, and he sent me a message like, "Hey, I appreciate your content. I'm here in San Diego as well. Do you want to grab like fish tacos?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm down." And he was one of the first people that I met in real life from LinkedIn, and we grabbed fish tacos, and ever since then it turns out he actually lives, at the time he was living up the street from me. So LinkedIn can be as big as, because it is a global platform, or it can be as small as you make it to be. And I was just like, damn, like that was pretty cool to meet someone in real life. And since then we've become pretty damn good friends. I would consider him to be one of my best friends. And someone, when you become, when you get older, it's hard to make friends, right? Because you move away, and generally speaking, it seems like a lot of, folks you went to high school with and stuff, you just don't, you've kind of moved on, right? In high school, it's kind of about the town that you're living in or the city that you're living in, and you go to school together because that's just what you do, and you kind of part ways. But as an adult, it can be lonely at times, and I think it was the CDC yesterday that came out with that report on loneliness. So I think just the way to go about meeting up with people is just say, what city you're going or where you're going to be, and just message people that are in that particular area. And I think you'll find people are going to be willing to meet up, more often than not, if both schedules allow for it. The only way to know is to ask, though. It's like anything, right?
Yeah. We were talking earlier about how salesmanship helps with the content creation. And I've actually found that you kind of need to treat friendship like salesmanship too. And by that, I mean, in sales, you learn that if somebody's ghosting you, somebody's not returning your calls, somebody's not open to having a conversation with you, the move is not to just keep pestering them until they give up. The move is to go find somebody who actually wants what you're selling. And I went through a difficult time in my life because I was going through a divorce. COVID was happening. I was not around anybody. My friends who I was doing comedy with in my 20s were no longer doing comedy. They had no interest in doing comedy. And they were all pretty preoccupied with their own stuff. I could have gotten very isolated, and that happens sometimes. And that has happened to me throughout my life. I've gone through nasty bouts of depression, in part too, I'm in Chicago, where everybody and their friggin' grandmother is an improviser. We all went to Second City. Everybody in this damn city is a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And it can mess with your head because it feels like it's not special. And you get done with the shows. I would do these 90-minute sketch shows. They were, you've seen how crazy my LinkedIn content is. That's 60 seconds long. I was writing 90-minute, 2-hour-long shows.
Goodness.
With a full cast and a full band, through lines, music. And what would happen is I would get done with the show, and then the next day I'd be like, oh yeah, I just wrapped up my show. And they'd go, okay, when's the next one? Like, those take so long, And even if I sold out the house, if it ran for 3 or 4 weekends, I only get 300 or 400 people to see it. I used to think that meant I wasn't good, And actually what I found is if you take a stage, something like LinkedIn or something like TikTok or whatever, and you just go start performing, you just go start doing stuff, like, there are people on the other side of the world who enjoy my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have audience members, I have clients and prospects all over the world. I've coached people in Spain and Ireland and Australia and all these places
Mm-hmm.
that don't have Second City like Chicago has, But it's like, you got to put yourself out there. And again, I stand by this. You have to talk to strangers. You know, they don't have any pre-existing thoughts about you. They're just going to like it or not like it. So yeah, why do you think it's hard for people to do this, James? Why do you think only 1% of the 1% actually post on LinkedIn, and most of that is not engaging with people? Most of that is not doing something adventurous. Most of that is people posting the safest possible thing they can post on their LinkedIn page. What do you think? Why is there such an aversion to being an actual authentic person on that website?
I think there's I think there's a lot to unpack with that question. First would be, you know, what is my manager going to think of me? What is my coworker going to think of me? What is a potential hiring manager going to think of me? And I'm not going to lie, it's intimidating, right? Like, I first started out when I was at DocuSign as an SDR in Seattle, and I was like posting corporate mumbo jumbo from DocuSign, and like it just doesn't resonate. It just doesn't resonate because I'm just reposting like a blog post. Like, it's just like someone can go on the DocuSign blog and read that. Like, I didn't create the content, I'm reposting something, and it's uncomfortable in the beginning. Like, I'm not going to say that posting on LinkedIn isn't intimidating, but it's like anything. Like, you get the reps in. You can start off in the shallow end too. You can start off by just dropping likes, leaving comments. And I think what you'll find is if you slow down to speed up, and what I mean by that is if you slow down and do your best to leave an insightful comment on someone's post, sometimes that will that can set the stage for you to create your own post, because you can elaborate on your comment that you left, because, you know, if you're doing your best to leave an insightful comment, you obviously have your own take on that post. So I think just people can get really in their heads about like the what ifs, and I'm like, yeah, but, and you know, you're gonna have coworkers that make like snide remarks, right? But in this economic environment, that person that's making a snide remark, your coworker, they might not even be a coworker next week with like how things are going in the tech world, right? I mean, with layoffs and stuff. So you could be so inside your head about like, oh, well, you know, so-and-so made a little jab at me, you know, and it was a comment that kind of got inside my head. That person, like, critics don't pay your bills. So that person that's like, they're not going to support you either way. And that's just the way it is. But there's 900 million people on the platform, and it's no different than going to real life. Like, you're not going to get along with everyone at the potluck. You're going to chat it up with different people and find people that birds of a feather flock together. So I think that's all it is. It's just like, spend less time thinking about these people that you think are like going to have like snide remarks, because that's not going to get you where you want to be. So I would just say, just go for it, and start off in the shallow end. Start off dropping likes, leaving comments, and once you build a community, you could have some really cool opportunities that are coming your way.
Yeah. So I want to jump into Paul. We got Paul here. Modern financial advice. I like his comment here. He says, my mentor always said commitment is the first step to anything, and it's the toughest step because many people aren't in a position where they have to commit. The combination of fear and the comfort zone have been the biggest things for me. And this is actually, I'm big on commitment here. And, you know, it's easy for me to say because I've done a lot of live shows, and that's how I learned to perform. I cut my teeth performing in small rooms, and I had to go through a period of time where, like, even charging somebody $12 or $15 or something like that. I'm getting a little sound on the microphone, by the way. Okay, I'm not hearing anymore. But yeah, even just being like in front of people, there came a time where I had to be like, okay, these people are paying for a show, so I got to act like it's worth their while. Mm-hmm. You know, I got to just act like it's funny, and then they're going to go along with it. And when I told people I was going to start making LinkedIn content, everybody in my life thought I was an idiot. I told people on my sales team, I'm like, hey, I've got this kind of different approach to selling. I've got this more improv-based like approach. I think I want to start doing content about that. And they're like, why would you do content about what if your prospects see that? I'm like, I don't care, because my whole style is about listening to them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then I wanted to start doing comedy. I reached out to comedians that were in my sketch shows. And I was like, hey, I want to get sketch comedy out there. I'll pay you to like film sketches with me so I can have some other actors in there. And they said, no, that's LinkedIn. I don't want to do stuff on LinkedIn. You know, everybody, my family, everybody had their doubts about, you know, whether this was a good idea. But then when I just started doing it, people were into it. You know, people were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, I found my people, like, you know, you're an adventurer. You're jumping off cliffs and stuff like that. My adventures is creating art with people. I find other artistic people. I find other comedians. I find actors. I find people who want to put themselves out there, musicians. And we find a way to do our thing. We create something together, and it's an experience that involves all of us. And yeah, it doesn't really matter if anybody doesn't like it, because I found a group of people that are into it. So,
Yep.
Do you have any advice for, like, I mean, I know we just say put it out there, just put yourself out there. That can be hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, how do you go about finding the people on LinkedIn who you want to support?
I read I see what's coming through my feed. For, you know, like yourself, for example, when you first started coming through, I couldn't think of anyone who was really putting out funny content, right? So it popped for me, right? It resonated with me. There's other people on the platform that are really buttoned up and very serious, and like, it's probably not going to resonate with them, but that's fine. Like, it's like being passionate about something. Like, I'm into like endurance swimming. Not everyone's into endurance swimming. Like, it's just, I hang out with endurance swimmers, and like, that's what life's all about. I think is just like finding something that brings you happiness. And if comedy and inspiring others to utilize video to showcase their personality brings you happiness, and a family member or an old coworker says that won't work, well, that family member, that coworker is probably not doing it. So like, why would you take advice from someone who literally doesn't know what they're talking about, because they're not doing it? And like, that's the whole thing. It's wild when you think about it. You're like, wow, I'm literally taking advice from someone who like they don't know what they don't know. And if they're not active on the platform and have never made a post themselves, or, you know, help someone get a job, they don't know that feeling of like getting a message and being like, wow, I helped change the trajectory of someone's life and helped put food on their table because I took 60 seconds and made a post, and a recruiter got the email and made the exchange. Then that was kind of the whole preface of the Wall Street Journal article, was like, you know, I believe that commenting, that if I see someone's post that they got laid off and I write commenting for reach and I drop a heart, that's going to help their post get more visibility. And someone else in the article took a different take and said that that's disingenuous. I personally think it's disingenuous to write a paragraph on someone's post who I don't know, right? I have no idea who this person is. I'm not, to me to write a paragraph about what? Like, I don't know who they are. I'm just trying to help the best way I can. So I write commenting for reach. That goes out to my 40,000 followers, and then I carry on to the next one. I was doing my best at the time to triage the situation. So, you know, someone else in the article had a different take and said that was disingenuous. And I'm like, I don't know this person's work history. I don't know who they are or what they're about. So to me, that would be disingenuous to write a paragraph about what? And it takes a half a second to drop a like, and it takes 5 seconds to write the comment. So every little bit helps. I mean, if they're getting comfortable with the uncomfortable of going on the platform and talking about how they got laid off, then I think that we as a community, why would you not want to support that? You know, I don't know. That's beyond me how someone would. It's like a kind thing to do, and minimal lift. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat. I don't like if somebody doesn't like what I'm doing, they don't have to watch the show, you know. There was a comment here I really liked. So this is a thing I run into all the time, being a person who coaches content creation, right? We've got Brandon Jepson here in the comments. He says, what really got me started was using LinkedIn to hedge my bets against a startup not delivering on their promises. And yeah, this is a great reason to start posting content on LinkedIn. I can't tell you how many people take a meeting with me because they're like, hey, I want to start doing my own thing. I don't know how much longer this company I'm at is going to last. You know, I don't know if my job is going to last. I don't know if the company is going to last. And when you put yourself out there on LinkedIn, you're doing two things. One, that is content that your company does not own. If you go create content for your company, if you go create training materials or whatever for them, the day they fire you, they wipe all that stuff out of existence. They just flip a switch and it all gets deleted, you know? If you do that for yourself, that exists out there no matter what happens to your company, you know? And to the people out there who are afraid of winding up on r/LinkedIn lunatics, which is the subreddit where people make fun of LinkedIn cringe.
Sure.
You know, there are very like real fears about that. But like my whole thing is like, there are complete like fucking morons who do very well for themselves making content. If you've ever been on TikTok and you're like, this person's an idiot, why do they have 1 million followers? I say, like, look, if that idiot can get 1 million followers posting sheer nonsense, why can't you just go post something intelligent on LinkedIn, you know, or TikTok or what? Like, why can't you talk about something that brings you joy? Why can't you go support somebody who's putting good things out into the world that you want to see boosted and amplified? Of course you can do that, you know? But it does take a little bit of getting over yourself. So we're coming up to the end of our time here. I've got some, like, I've been loving the commentary here. Everybody in the comments, if you have any final questions for me or for James about LinkedIn, about like leaving your job and going all in on your own brand and your own content creation. Even like we made a sketch earlier this week that was funny. If you want to ask us about that, I'm throwing one last time out here for the comments. If you want to come in and ask us any questions. And yeah, I will say of all the adventures you have had on LinkedIn, what sticks out the most for you? Like what like have you had any experiences? You know, I guess you could mention the Wall Street Journal one again. But you know, if there's anything else in there, like what about doing this changed your life for the better?
So I've referenced like two of my very close friends, Tim Pereira and Alex Bruschi, that I've met off LinkedIn, right? I think it was really, really cool to go out to Utah back in January. And, you know, I made a post like, hey, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City flying drones with some snowboarders. And when I got messages from numerous people like, hey, let's meet up to grab dinner. And I was just like, wow, like the LinkedIn community in Utah is rather small, but it is very, I mean, Silicon Slopes is definitely like, it's a real thing out there. There's a lot of tech companies in a very small area. And that's when I realized, I was like, there's a lot of really cool people on this platform that are down to meet up in real life. And that was my first time going on a trip and like announcing that I'm going to Salt Lake City and like having numerous people reach out to meet up. And I was like, this is a lot bigger than I realized the potential of where this could go. So yeah, I think for me, that was a turning point, that trip.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you're catching a theme here today, everybody, it's go do stuff with other people.
Yes.
Go find that person whose post you want to boost, you know, find that person who's doing something cool, get into conversations with them, appreciate them for what they do, put yourself out there, look for the people who appreciate what you do. For me, James, he's going all over the slopes. He's flying all over the place, having adventures. I say you can also have adventures just sitting at home at your desk. This little weird stick you see me play at the start of every show, this is an adventure. Right? I hadn't been playing music for 15 years. I was a sax player. I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to start this. This plays like a sax, but it's a synthesizer. I'm just going to start playing, and the audience is going to watch me improve over time. That's an adventure for me. I've had silent work hours. I've literally had times where I just go on a live stream and work silently, and people are into it. It's like actually pretty crazy. Igor, I'm going to ask James, you can answer this question if you have a different answer than me, but I want to end on this question from Igor. What was your biggest flop on this journey? Something you'd recommend we all avoid? I can't even think of anything, every time I think this is too stupid to work, every time I think this sketch is too outrageous for LinkedIn to accept, or this live stream is going to be too boring and niche for people to get behind, somebody's into it. And sometimes many, many, many more people are into it than I anticipated. And it ends up being huge. So if I hit that point where I have this huge flop that destroys me, Igor, you'll know about it. But I haven't gotten to that point yet. So James, any flops that you could tell your audience to avoid, or what are your thoughts on this question?
I have had, you're going to, over the course of your time on there, you're going to have posts that, you poured your heart into, and then you're going to have posts that are kind of fluffy, right? And we're just like on the whim thoughts. And you might think like, wow, actually like that was like a deeper post. And I feel as though it had a really good meaning, and the post just doesn't do well. So like, I think just like detaching from the outcome and realizing like there's algorithms at play and there's a lot that's beyond your control, right? So when you say a flop, like personally, like I don't consider it a flop. I just consider it like it's part of the process. And I think one thing in the beginning when folks refer to flops, it's like maybe a post not having as good of engagement. But if you're new to the platform and you're comparing your engagement metrics to somebody who's been active on the platform for months, if not years longer than you, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I was up in San Francisco this past weekend at a SailGP race, which is like the Formula One for sailing. And I'm like, this is the top pinnacle of sailing. And like, am I out there on the boats? No, but I also didn't put in the work. So I can't compare myself to some like, Olympic sailor, because I haven't been sailing since I was 6 years old. So it's like, I appreciate it. I had a great time, but like, you also just like, you just got to realize like, just start, and don't compare yourself to others. Like literally, if you throw up a post and it brings value to one person, that's what matters in the beginning is just literally it's once the train leaves the station and you've built momentum, you're going to find that the platform can be very, very powerful, but it's taking that first action, and it's uncomfortable in the beginning. But the pros outweigh whatever cons there are, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I will throw this out just as one last note on that. Just because someone didn't click the like button doesn't mean they weren't impacted by it.
Yes.
I see this all the time. I will have a thoughtful, low-performing post. You have to realize sometimes the reason why people click the like button is because you gave them this little euphoric feeling at the end of your post. Sometimes those thoughtful posts that you put out there, people don't click the like button, but they thought about it. And if you keep at it, they'll let you know. And I just surveyed my audience about what was the most memorable episode they've ever had of the show. What was the most memorable sketch they ever saw? Oftentimes it was not the most popular one. It was not the one that got the biggest engagement. You'll never know. So go out there, have an adventure. James, I could talk to you forever. Unfortunately, our time is up. So why don't we give our audience one more time? Where are they going to go if they want to find your content online?
You can just find me on LinkedIn. That's the platform that I prefer to spend the most of my time on at this point in my life. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you and learning more about each one of your guys' stories, because, we can make things happen.
Yeah. Look up James Perry on LinkedIn. Follow him, connect with him, ring the bell. Don't miss his updates. And also, if you would like to support me or the show, all the money to my digital products and services go right back into the show and go right back to making more amazing content for you. So you can purchase the complete guide to selling on video. Use promo code SALES if you want to get it for $99. That offer's only good during May. So get it before it goes back up to $250. Or if you just want to leave a tip, there is a tip jar there. Throw a couple bucks to the show. These wind synthesizers don't buy themselves. And lastly, you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can also follow me wherever you get content. So Chris Sells His Soul on TikTok. You can find me on YouTube. And if you want to listen to past episodes of the show, look for Chris Sells His Soul wherever you get podcasts. You can listen to old episodes. I edit those and I release those in audio form. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, go subscribe and listen to other episodes if you want to listen to more conversations about monetizing the creative process. So, James, thank you very much, and say bye.
Thank you very much for having me, Chris. Appreciate you.